Hello and welcome back to Ethically Yours, our podcast to simplify sustainability. And I'm your host, Darshana. Today we have a truly remarkable guest who's redefining the way we perceive waste and materials. Imagine a world where waste becomes the future quarries of mining materials. A world where industrial and agricultural waste are not seen as a burden, but as valuable resources waiting to be discovered. Welcome to the world of the Material Library of India. Material Library of India is a pioneering initiative focusing on investigating value chains and giving new life to waste materials that were once destined for landfills or incinerations. They combine traditional craftsmanship with modern materials, transforming even the most unrelenting materials into fluid surfaces through complex weaves and processes. The results? A conscious effort to generate and sustain latent value in industrial waste materials that can be harvested for creating everyday products, ranging from furniture to lifestyle accessories and even textiles to ceramics. And leading the change in this groundbreaking endeavor is our guest today, Shubhi Sachan. Shubhi is a multidisciplinary designer and a consultant who's passionate about circularity. She holds an MA in Material Futures from Central St. Martin's, where she developed impactful projects such as Life of a Bullet, Traditional Futures, and many more. Shobhi's work has gained international recognition from being a TEDx speaker in 2018 and a finalist for the Lexus Design Award in the same year to receiving the CII Green Co Best Practices Award in 2016. Her innovative ideas have been showcased at prestigious platforms across Lakme Fashion Week, London Design Week, Dutch Design Week, and many more. So, without further ado, let's welcome Shubhi Sachan, the visionary and founder of the Material Library of India, as she takes us on an inspiring journey of transforming waste into valuable resources. Thank you so much for joining us, Shubhi. Should we get started?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Darshana, for having me on board.
Welcome to the show. So, to begin with, could you tell us more about the Material Library of India and how it's pioneering the transformation of waste materials into valuable resources?
So, when we talk about material libraries across the globe, there are several. And but when we talk about Material Library of India, it is pretty unique. And why is it unique? For the longest time, India as a country was not doing consciously innovation. It was happening all around us, but it was not happening consciously in a very documented way. So either it's very restrictive to the paperwork only, or it's subconsciously done. So as a country, what is right for our time and generation? We are agri-centric also, and we are manufacturing centric also. So having both, Material Library of India is the first material library around the globe which is talking about waste being archived from both of these such segments of agriculture as well as industrial, and working towards it.
Very interesting. You specifically spoke about industrial and agricultural waste. Could you give us some examples about the kind of waste that typically comes out of industrial and agricultural waste?
So when we talk about industrial and agricultural waste, agriculture is happening for generations in a particular way. It's just growing in number, right? Like we have to produce these many metric tons, these many thousands of metric tons more this year, or this has to contribute to the per capita of the country in this particular manner. That's how we're targeting, but it's happening in a particular way, in a particular fashion, and it's giving out very set type of waste. So how can you make uses of that waste, which is a regenerative material, which is coming as a natural material, and how can you start using those materials without having proper information? Any kind of innovation and any kind of intervention in these cycles seems pretty pointless. So why do we have to invent the cycle every time we start to work with it? So hence agriculture waste in a documented way. Now moving to industrial waste. even when it comes to industrial waste, a lot of things are made in a very very specific manner. Like automobile industry, cars are made for a few decades now in a very streamlined and a very similar fashion how it was. It's just like the outcome is slightly getting different. But when it comes to automobiles, when it comes to shoes, similar kind of waste comes out from every assembly line, every manufacturing line. And little bit here and there, but most of the materials remain same. When such is the manufacturing line, we need to start seeing these materials as resources rather than seeing them as waste, is what is the need of this time and generation. And hence, Material Library of India talks about these materials of particular segments as resources.
The Material Library of India is, of course, involved in various projects from exploring non recyclable plastics to textiles, like you mentioned, via fashion or even other industries. And like you mentioned, you've been collaborating with a bunch of brands, but of course, IKEA is something. We all love, and I would love to know what were the highlights of the project, what was your brief, what did you really get together and do with them, and what was the impact of this partnership?
I think, yes, as you rightly said, most of us are fascinated by the brand. And I do love one thing about this brand particularly is that the brand was built on a concept of use and throw culture, like a nomadic culture. Furniture was something which they started the journey with, and they were making those things. But as you see, I mean, I see IKEA as a beautiful brand because they have just managed to beautifully transition from being a nomadic culture brand to like hold on to it and like talk about it in a more sustainable way. And when we today think about sustainability, this is one of the most leadership, like giving thought leadership kind of a brand right now, what we have. And it completely reflects in the project also which we did with IKEA. We did the project called Living Library of Seeds, and IKEA being IKEA went on to say that homes should not be a cost center, they should be a resource center. And if they have to be a resource center, how can we help people and help them see this as a tool to do so, and help them, handhold them to be able to realize the potential of everything which comes out of homes. And be it a cotton t-shirt or be it timber furniture, everything starts with seed. So in today's world, we have started overlooking the seed preservation methods and preservation of seed in the first place, identification of how to preserve seed in the first place. And that's where the whole that's where how the whole project revolves around, and says like how regional, how seasonal, and how important it is to identify seeds in different plants and different fruits or different trees, and how do you preserve them and how do you create a seed bank of your own. And I think behind this project, one was a very 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 strong example which someone I really look up to is Vandana Shiva. I mean, how she has created seed banks all across. So she was the inspiration when I was working on this project. At the same time, IKEA being a beautiful brand, they didn't interfere with the narrative at all. They were happy with the brief written by us together, and then implemented.
So, just as an extension of this project, would you have any tips for anyone listening to us right now on how can they look at seeds differently, or how can they maybe preserve seeds in their day-to-day life and maybe contribute or start creating their own living library of seeds?
I think the first step starts with starting to look at seeds and identify them as the beginning, as the beginning of something beautiful and very big. And once you start to resonate that thought with the seeds, you start to understand that if you are bringing non-seasonal fruit home, you will never be able to neither preserve it nor germinate it. So the first thing which will come to your understanding is you will start to notice that what is regional, what is seasonal, and how do you keep it in original format to be able to preserve it. And I think that's those three keywords with food are my mantra whenever I'm working with regional, seasonal, and original. And with those three keywords, you start to think, they give you a food for thought around food, and then you start to venture into a journey of your own.
That's brilliant. I did not expect us to touch upon this aspect in this conversation, honestly, but it's a good pivot. And truly, I think when we talk about sustainability, it's really about what's available now, what's sustainable in the given environment. So I really love the regional, seasonal, and original sort of pillars in a sense. And I'm going to just keep it aside as a footnote whenever I make decisions, whether it's food or whether it's furniture or whether it's travel, even. But I'm going to come back to what we spoke about. You mentioned that there are up to 8 different kinds of materials that make a pencil, a simple pencil. And it's really fascinating to hear about the material literacy across all your work. And it obviously seems like an important pillar for the kind of work that you do. Can you simplify what it means? And why do you think that the knowledge and understanding of materials is important to foster the conversation of circular economy, circularity, cradle to cradle, and so on?
See, it's very simple that we have all coined one term. Material literacy has been coined based on one term, which is called financial literacy. We all started talking about financial literacy and we didn't question it because we live in a capitalist world and we all have to understand how well can we literate ourselves financially. And we very well questioned that why this was never taught in schools, and we should have been taught this in schools, and that's how you know how to manage your wealth properly and manage your taxations and so on. But when it comes to materials, I mean, even a currency note is made out of something, be it any country. So it's a tangible thing, and we don't know what are materials, how many materials do we interact with in a day, and when we don't know, then we make something and then we try to find a solution at the end of its life. In the entire journey, we don't know what is the technical nutrient, what is the biological nutrient, why are we mixing these two materials together. We have only one mission: it should look like this, it should serve this purpose. We don't question anything else, we don't want to know anything else. So very simply, I mean, we keep saying this over and over again, that anything which has not been built in a day, how can you expect end of the life solution of the same thing in a blink? So hence material literacy is very, very important, because no matter how intangible the word is getting, everything has its materiality. And even that intangible words has a very, very hardcore materiality. You and I know that. It has a very big footprint. So knowing what you're doing and making sound decisions starts very early on. And if we try to tell circular economy to students or kids, I think it's a bit too heavy. Why don't we take a few steps back, not one or two, few steps back altogether, and simplify this, that why, what is made out of what? And then from there on, we leave it on to, like, in today's thing, if I look at the most depressing thing, if anybody relevant is hearing me through this podcast, the most depressing thing for me is to look at the materiality of schools, materiality of uniforms, the materiality of school bags, the materiality of anything we try to give our kids in schools. it's horrible, and kids shouldn't be using any of those materials. We as parents, I am a mother, and I will never buy those things if they're not forced upon me. Uh, Apart from school uniform, those are such bad quality uniforms, and kids live in those materials for the longest duration of their day. So these are the things which we need to talk about. We can't just change them overnight, but we really need to talk about these things. And I think material literacy is a brilliant tool to do that.
I want to add a very common misconception about materials is often when people use a paper cup, they feel that they have done a great job, have earned brownie points because they have chosen a more conscious cup to drink a tea or a coffee or whatever in, without really knowing that it is actually lined with plastic. And a lot of times this happens that somebody comes to me and they're having a coffee or whatever, and I make it a point to say, oh, but that cup has plastic lined in it. And I think 99% of people just are shocked to know that, oh, this has the plastic lining. And I remember you and I having this conversation multiple times about multi-layer packaging and just any kind of material that has just different types of layers to it and how difficult it is to sort of divide. So I do get your point in just understanding and breaking down all the products into different materials. And I think in an effort to do that, of course, you're working with kids, and I would like to talk about that a little bit. But I think what's beautiful is that you've been working with academic institutions and very well-known institutions like NIFT and ISDI, Symbiosis, and the likes, and actually delivering courses designed to trigger creativity and fuse waste materials into meaningful, sustainable products. So, can you tell us a little about, how has this course been received by students, and what kind of outcomes have you observed so far?
Oh, so it's brilliant. The students have received it marvelously well, and they're amazed. They're intrigued. I mean, often I get to hear feedbacks from their faculty members that they all immediately want, as soon as the time gets over, if it's 5:30, then they have to leave by 5:30. But this is a rare scenario where they have stuck on to the class for like 15 minutes extra and so on. But so students are intrigued, they want to know, but somehow we have a very sanitized so before I get into this, that what is it, and I just want to say that most of the material literacy sessions are very hands-on, Darshana. And they're very hands-on because the tactile experience has to come into play. You have to touch, you have to feel, you have to understand, and you have to understand the character of different materials to be able to say and form a very sound decision about them. So most of the material literacy sessions, be it workshops in corporates or be it academic session, most of them are very hands-on and very engaging, which is not a culture in most of the neither institutions nor corporates. So it's kind of breaking the ice in a very different way. So some people do like it, some people do not appreciate it as much. It's creating a mess in their work area, in their space. But I don't know since when we have started academic institutions being so sanitized that if we have a very little exercise, a very rudimentary exercise where we try to tell students that how segregation helps. And it's a very rudimentary exercise of separating few things from each other. They're natural materials. We give it to them, and they have to separate in that exercise. And it becomes so that they're like, oh, really? We have to do this? Oh, really? ये तो बहुत ही basic है. I mean, this can't be it. So it shows in volumes about mindsets that gadgets, notebooks, pens, smart stationaries is all it is about, and we have forgotten very, very simple things even in academic courses. So material literacy are very well received in breaking the ice for students, and we have gotten feedback from students which are like, we haven't even noticed even in our own vicinity environment that so and so was happening. Material literacy takes care of like different dimensions of sustainability, because you can't tell them about sustainability in a very silofied way. So we do touch upon different dimensions, and then we come to the core crux, if it's a management institute, or if it's an engineering institute, or if it's a design institute, based on whatever wherever the relevance is. So it becomes so that we touch upon everything, and then they start to open up a dimension which is like observation. Just observe around you and be more open and receptive around for your own surroundings. I think that one particular thing is the common feedback all across students we have received, and I think it's phenomenal when you become more receptive to your own surroundings.
It's sounding extremely meditative and mindful as an exercise. So maybe we get together next time and study materials together. But you mentioned corporate workshops and corporate consultations as well. Can you just help me understand what sort of consultations you do at corporates? Do they come to you with a brief? Is it for a specific kind of resources in terms of, other, are you consulting design teams, or are you consulting supply chain teams, or what is that departments in a corporate that you're consulting, and what's the brief?
Oh, so when it comes to corporates, in context to workshops, it has been very sustainability focused, sustainability department focused workshops. But when it comes to the briefs and the consultation projects, it's all across. So it depends on the red flags they have been seeing as materials, or it depends on a particular division which wants to introduce a new product line which is focusing on sustainability and materials from sustainable backgrounds. So it's all across. For IKEA, it was purely from their communications team who was trying to communicate this beyond IKEA products. So it was with none of the departments, but with their core communication team, we were ideating all this. So it's very different for everyone. And one of the projects which we did with the Godrej Pune project, and we were covering all the different businesses, and that was pretty brave of a company of that scale and nature to let us touch upon all those materials. It was more than 600 materials, and then having to have a very in-depth understanding of each material and taking steps and taking what do you call taking sound decisions from there on, that what should be bracketed as this, that, and that. So I think yeah, so there have been briefs of very versatile nature, and depending on the need cases.
Interesting. And, from your experience, you, of course, been interacting with a variety of people and backgrounds. From your experience, what are some of the most common misconceptions or challenges that people face when it comes to reimagining waste materials, or even incorporating sustainability into their day to day lives?
I think what I was talking about, schools being sanitized or academic institutions being completely sanitized in a particular manner, I think that's the misconception, that sustainability has to be taken care in a different segment, and they don't correlate the two activities. That as you progress in a day, and every decision which you're making, it has to be, this concept of sustainability has to be married in, be it leaving food on your plate and not putting it in the right place, or leaving a glass of water when you order your drinks, and just because you're not paying for it, you just leave it there. I think sustainability starts there, that you see that water as less important than your drink which you've paid for, and that's where the differences start, because you can survive without that drink, but you cannot survive without that glass of water. So why do you value it less, and why do you think it's okay to waste it? And I think sustainability starts there, where people start to not see these obviouses, and they think only big things are supposed to be taken care of.
I think, beautifully put. I think I'm a huge advocate, and I think it's only common sense to believe and to agree or accept the fact that sustainability is really about behavior change. And what better than to sort of catch kids, younger minds are so much more easier to train, to educate. And just want to come to the materiality summer workshops that you've been specifically organizing for kids. It of course sounds like a fantastic initiative to promote material literacy and sustainability, for that particular audience. So, what have children learned? What has been their experiences during these workshops, and what has been that experience for you also to interact with kids and just, it's literally brass tacks, new minds, like really naive minds. How is it different? Is it more exciting than going to a corporate with rigid minds? Can you just take us through that?
It's very simple. I mean, if we put very conscious things on the table, kids will use that. If we put not so conscious things on the table, kids will use that. So they, as you rightly said, they're very fresh and they're very moldable. So they are as happy and they're as intrigued by very simple things kept in the format of waste but useful to them. So like be it colors or be it materials to play around with and interact with. So no matter how simple it is, they are very very much hands on and they are trying to learn because they haven't touched and they have not felt everything so far, and it's very new for them. But as you progress further, it kinds of becomes very challenging. I mean, from few of our initial workshops, we also learned this, that you cannot give them a lot of information because it becomes very, very challenging for them to translate that into real life. And they have a beautiful word out there, and let them live in that beautiful word for the while, for the time being. So we started telling them that let's not do this. Very simply, we started telling most of the kids, let's not do this, it will harm animals. Let's not do this, it will make our water go bad. I mean, those kind of simple relationships with the things which they use I become the most intriguing things for them. And I have a 6-year-old who has been the biggest preacher of sustainability I have seen. I mean, every birthday he takes cookies or he takes anything, any other kid's birthday in the class, he will bring everything back to go into a recycling bin. And even if the teacher says that, no, we will put it in the recycling bin, he knows that not everybody knows the difference between different kinds of plastics. And that he has only learned through seeing different bins in our house, that PT is a different bin and MLP is a different bin. I mean, no, I'm not saying that that's possible for every household, but I mean, just by showing them the possibilities and just by showing him that these are the different things which we can make out of different segregated waste, he has imbibed that very beautifully. And that is what has been inspiring me to go out there and talk to more and more kids of similar age group.
Exciting, very exciting indeed. And I do keep seeing your stories about seeing how your son is just being this source of inspiration to me as well. You know, I falter so many times in composting and segregation, but kudos to you. Moving on, I just want to understand what has been the most exciting and the most difficult material that you worked with throughout your journey. It could be through, your personal explorations, or maybe for certain projects that you've been doing for your clients, anything for that matter.
Darshana, I will not name, but you're very well aware of the kind of products which we make. So, the most difficult thing which has been not one particular material, but the most difficult thing which has been is people over the time have been conditioned to see waste becoming a product into a rags format. They cannot imagine waste becoming a very good, very high end, and a very smoothly finished product. A polished product outcome cannot be from waste is the perception out there, which makes it very annoying, at the same time difficult for us to tell people that if you understand materials, a lot can be changed. And hence we want to advocate this thing as further as quickly as possible. The moment you understand materials in depth, you can get beautiful outputs. You do not have to live with racks put together to be able to say this is made from waste. The outcomes of most of our products are very well finished and very good because we have simply understood the materiality of it, and we have not tried to push them into a direction where they're not supposed to be going. That's the only difference, and I think that's the only biggest challenge right now when people look at the products and they're not able to believe and comprehend. And it's very difficult to show them every single process which we work with, that this is the journey, this is the video, this is how it happened. It kind of gets tricky there.
I can say this with full confidence. The products that I have seen, touch, felt that Shubhi has made over the years, and you can of course see them on their website as well. She's also done a showcase at Fashion Week, and she's helped a bunch of emerging designers to look at waste differently. And you do not really look at those end products and feel that this is waste. I mean, I remember looking at some of the most beautiful cushion covers that could look like brocade, but I think it was some sort of a wire coming out of some different industry altogether. I remember seeing like a sequence type embroidered cushion cover, but it was a paper punch, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so very interesting, and I think you're not mentioning it, but I really want to, probe you to talk about a little when you worked with bones from, the meat industry, and you're a pure vegetarian. So I'm going to take you back on to that nostalgic trip and just tell us how difficult or easy it was to convert. A material that is not in your life in any way or form, but you have really worked on it and made it look like ivory. So, just a quick nostalgic trip on that, please.
It's yeah, it is really nostalgic. It's been a while, but I think that particular project and that particular ensemble of pieces was talking about everyday waste. And I think food being everyday waste, it's very, very important for us to see that not everything which we can consume has no footprints left behind. And meat, as we all know, is the biggest industry, the industry which has the biggest footprints. To be able to tell people that if you are happy to if you're happy to take a life for your taste buds or your food palate, I mean, let's at least celebrate it to the fullest and just push that material into our everyday life as well. Yes, I have had many interactions after that particular project where people were not very happy with that approach, and people were also saying that no, but this is not right. But that is a fact today. If I even take out this concept of vegetarian and non-vegetarian, being purely vegetarian, also dairy industry is pushing us in that direction, and bones. Amazingly, Darshana, for that particular project, primarily were coming from dairy industry, not only from meat industry. So, which is very, very important for people to know and see that how much we have pushed a uh, particular limit of consumption and particular limit of overusing without understanding. Be it our food palette or be it any other material for that matter. So I'm not trying to sound again very spiritual here, but conscious living is taking and there is a blurring line there. So yes, so that particular project was talking about a lot of different things, underlining a lot of different things, and I think it was good to realize that food has that aspect as well and put it on the ramp.
Yeah, no, commendable work for sure. Moving on, one of your recent initiatives at the Material Library of India is something called as Exchange Thrift Store. And as you know, I've been a huge advocate of clothes swaps, and I've absolutely loved hosting clothes swaps in Bombay, thrifting, pre-loved fashion, and just the idea of reuse. Can you share a little more about this initiative and how it contributes to reducing waste and promoting conscious living?
Exchange is a byproduct of TRF, Textile Recycling Facility, which we are in process of establishing full on, but we have been working on it for 1 year, and we have been collecting textile waste to be able to recycle it. When we have started collecting textile waste, not every form of textile, every piece of textile comes to us in a form where it has to go into recycling. Most of them come into format where people just don't like them anymore, or they're not like fitting them anymore well, and so on. They have outgrown it. The kids have outgrown it. So it was not a very sound decision to say that, so we are embarking on a journey of recycling, hence we will recycle everything. So we started segregating, and in segregation we realized, no, these clothes are absolutely not good for, not fit for recycling, and they need to be reused. And that's how the exchange store took shape.
Okay, so I think we're almost coming towards the end. And as we wrap up, what message would you like to share with my dear listener about the importance of embracing sustainable practices and making a positive impact on the environment in smaller actions that we all can do?
I think there is only one thing where sustainability starts and makes it very simple: conscious living. That's where it starts. And then it can you can deep dive into it as in when what allows in your life. But very first step is consciously consuming, not over consuming, and consciously living and not undermining the resources around you. And I think it all starts from there.
Super. And there is one question that I ask all my guests, and that is, if you were to print a quote on a t-shirt, what would it say?
I think I would print, "What is recycling?" And why will I print that? Because more often than not, people think that they understand recycling, but 95% of the time, I have gotten wrong answers about recycling.
And it goes back to understanding materials. So, yeah, we are back to materials all over again. Well, thank you so much, Shubhi. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your inspiring journey and all the incredible work that you've been doing over the years and now at the Material Library of India. It's been an exciting and eye-opening conversation. And I think we will all be looking at waste as a valuable resource for the future. Any parting words?
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Do feel free to reach out and ask any particular questions about any of our initiatives. It will be wonderful to connect.
You can actually check out all the work that Shubhi and her team does on materiallibraryofindia.com. Do you want to give your Instagram handle as well, Shubhi?
It's Material Library of India. So Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere you will find us with the same name.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Do share your feedback and go listen to the other episodes on this podcast.